Welcome to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast, where you can learn and be inspired by real-world examples of how technology is transforming businesses and reshaping industries in a language everyone can understand. Here is your host, Neil C. Hughes.
Welcome back to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast, where every day we explore how businesses are leveraging technology in every industry. I recently saw a great headline over on TechCrunch, and the headline was Lucidworks raises $100 million to expand in AI-powered search as a service for organisations. And when I delved a little bit deeper, I discovered that Lucidworks is actually shaping the future of digital experiences, AI and machine learning. All the buzzwords are present, and they're doing this by reimagining the power and value of cognitive search. And the result? To create all new human-centred experiences. So I wanted to learn more about how they're helping companies deliver breakthrough search experiences that transform business and user experiments. And at the heart of that is not just the technology, but an empowered, ambitious team. So I invited Will Hayes, the CEO at Lucidworks, onto the podcast, and he said yes, which makes this aging podcaster a very happy man. So buckle up and hold on tight as I beam your ears back to the US so we can find out more about Lucidworks. So a massive warm welcome to the show, Will. Can you tell the listeners a little more about who you are and what you do?
Yes, my name is Will Hayes. I'm the CEO of Lucidworks. Lucidworks, we've developed an AI-driven search platform that's used by some of the world's largest retailers. We help provide personalized search experiences. We help with merchandising product through websites and other digital channels, and provide recommendations, products and services that are being offered by our clients to their clients.
Well, I'm quite excited to get you on the show today because one of the trends that I've seen at various events throughout the year, especially at events such as Adobe Summit and Magento, is that everyone's talking about the need to create personalized experiences. And as consumers, I think we're creating that demand with our increasing expectations because Netflix knows what we want to watch, Spotify knows what we want to listen to, and Amazon knows what we want to buy. But many businesses are scratching their heads thinking, well, where do I begin? So on that note, can you tell me a little bit more about why you built an AI-based engine to actually help individual organizations provide that personalized search service for their own users?
Well, you nailed it, right? I mean, as consumers, even as employees within companies, I mean, our expectations have shifted dramatically, especially in the last 10 years. We've experienced services, as you mentioned, Netflix and Spotify's and Amazon's, which have really increased those expectations, primarily because, we know what's possible, and we've experienced it through these various channels. And so it's really important now as we're serving the consumer base to meet those expectations the best we can. Now, as you know, a lot of major retailers in particular, these aren't technology companies. They weren't started as digital first. And so they do feel a lot like they're trying to catch up. And so the inspiration for us at Lucidworks was really, how do we empower these folks to meet the demand, to meet the expectations that the consumers have? Now, a lot of people, it's kind of a daunting task. They sit here and they scratch their head and they say, we're not in the Silicon Valley. We're not a technology company. What do we know about building machine learning and AI and all of these things that, the folks like Netflix and Amazon, these digital first businesses have been able to really pioneer? Well, the thing that I always remind them is that what they have that these companies do not have is a sense of taste, a sense of experience. They are experts in their domain. And so it's really about capturing the most important asset within these organizations, that human knowledge, that domain knowledge, and transferring that to those digital experiences. I shop at REI not because it's the only place that I can go buy outdoor gear, but because I can speak with experts where if I'm climbing Kilimanjaro, they can talk to me about the type of hiking boot or shoe that I need for that type of trip. If I'm doing my first hiking trip through the woods, they can talk about what might be appropriate for me. My first camping trip, my first ski trip. And so really that human element, that domain expertise is It's the secret sauce, and it's really the crown jewel of what these retailers and what these organizations have. And our job is to help them extract that and translate that to digital channels. I like to say the A in artificial intelligence, or the A in AI, I should say, is not artificial, it's augmented. How do we augment the intelligence of these applications with that human intuition?
And I really do feel for businesses at the moment, because on one hand, as consumers, we're incredibly demanding, and our expectations are demanding these personalized experiences. But on the other hand, I've spoken with some leaders who are concerned about getting personalization right without coming across being too intrusive, or that dreaded word, creepy. I mean, what is the secret to getting that balance right?
Again, first off, never let a machine do all the work for you, because the machine can't interpret what creepy is. It was interesting talking to Goop, who's one of our customers who is in the sort of the health and wellness space. And a lot of the information and even the engagement that customers are doing with them is highly personal, right? We can be talking about treatments and various products that have to do with various stages of life, maybe things that we might find that we don't necessarily want to share. And so the intersection in making those decisions about, if I'm looking for a hotel or a resort to take my family, and I happen to like beaches, I happen to like things in the Mediterranean, well, yeah, give me all the recommendations that you have. If I'm looking for cream to treat a toe fungus, maybe you shouldn't retain that information for too long. And so I think it's really a question of using judgment and human judgment. And so these companies that think they're just going to throw a bunch of artificial intelligence and automate their way out of everything, those are the ones that get in trouble. But as we fall back to people and the judgment of people to determine, where does that line need to be? If we're talking about healthcare, if we're talking about crises, if we're talking about things that impact our families that are deeply personal, well, we shouldn't retain any of that information. We shouldn't leverage that information. We should meet the need when somebody's requesting information. So I do think it's possible. I also think it's important to look at anonymization. You have laws like GDPR that are there for a reason. And so a lot of what we're trying to do is we're trying to understand intent and behavior. We don't need to understand who that individual is in all cases.
And that friend with toe fungus, that's you, isn't it, Will?
Right.
But Lucidworks recently hit the headlines for securing $100 million in funding to build an AI-based engine to help organizations to provide personalized search services for their own users. But can you tell me a little bit more about that funding and how it's actually going to help you move forward?
Yeah, the last couple years, have been really fantastic. We're working with great brands, we're working with great customers all over the world. And really, when we had the opportunity to expand our efforts, both on the R&D front, but really keeping up with the demand that was out there for the type of technology and the type of service that we provide. One of the things that's really interesting, as consumers, we think a lot about, what does personalization mean in terms of, my shopping experiences, whether I'm browsing products and browsing services. But you know what? Employers and companies, large enterprises, are struggling with the same thing. We're hiring employees from millennial generations or even digital natives, right? My grandfather used to Instagram, right? And so this is no longer a question of what generation, it's back to that expectation. So not only are we helping consumer brands and helping retailers meet that expectation, but we're actually helping enterprises transform their applications to more personalized data experiences, more productive data experiences. And so that's created a lot of demand around the globe for the type of technology and types of services that we've been developing. And with this funding, we're able to keep up with that demand and continue to lead the charge in this area of innovation, in this area of technology. So it's a very exciting milestone for us. It's one that means we can't sit back and relax. We've got a lot more work to do. We've got a lot of great customers and a lot of great opportunities out there, and we plan to go and capitalize on it.
And as you continue to keep delivering, keep meeting that demand and keep growing, how do you plan to scale at Lucidworks? I would imagine that's quite a big challenge for you guys, or a good problem to have.
It's better than the opposite, I can tell you that. Yeah. And so, but it's a really good question, right? Because obviously we can't do this all on our own. And so we've been investing heavily in partner networks, partnering with organizations that can deliver application development, partnering with domain experts in various fields. We've met so many great companies out there that specialize in helping the fashion industry, specialize in helping the travel industry. Some of these organizations don't even appear to be technology organizations, but again, that's okay. We've got the technology covered. What we need to understand are, what are the goals? What are the KPIs? What are the things that matter to these various verticals throughout the industry? And how do we leverage that domain expertise and turn that into a digital offering in which we can go to market and provide success for our customers?
And I was at the IFA show in Berlin recently, and they were talking about the consumer technology and the amount of smart products and 5G and IoT and so much more. And they're saying that if anyone went to sleep for 5 years and then woke up 5 years from now, the world would be a completely different place. So I'm going to ask you to look into your crystal ball a little bit here. I mean, how do you see the future of AI, and what impacts do you think it will have over the next 5 years on society and everything that we know right now?
Yeah, there's a lot of there's a lot of opportunity. There's a lot of things that we need to be cautious about, right? I mean, beyond helping people again find that perfect vacation or find that new blouse, which is something that we're really excited to be involved in. I look at technology like 5G, and what 5G really means is that these things that we hear about, image recognition, voice recognition, augmented reality, they're going to become an actual reality here very quickly. So it's one thing when I upload a bunch of photos to Google or to Facebook and they start tagging faces and they start grouping things and they start putting together albums of maybe my vacation to the Grand Canyon. And, those can sometimes feel a little bit creepy. I've seen cases where they've been tagging my son from the moment he was born up until a toddler, right? And I'm not, that gives me some mixed feelings. What I do worry about in the case of 5G is that it's no longer me going home, uploading an image every now and then, or having some things kind of floating off my mobile device. This is real time. And so you can imagine a scenario in which AI and 5G intersect, where I'm walking down the street and I'm looking up people by their faces, I'm recording conversations, I'm doing profile checks and web checks. And so the amount of information that can be processed in real time, because 5G provides that connectivity and the latency, is something we're going to have to seriously think about. Now, at the same time, what that can mean for, being in a hospital, being in a remote part of the world, and what we can provide as far as services, what we can provide as far as capabilities, education, information is tremendous. And so we need to be eyes wide open as we walk into this era, because there's so much opportunity to really transform people's lives, but there's a lot of areas in which this can be abused. And I think we're going to see a lot of interesting discussions, particularly around privacy, which is going to become, I believe, the most important commodity that humanity has ever seen, outside of maybe water. But really, it's going to become the thing that we can leverage, and it's going to become the thing that we're going to want to protect dearly. And I think we're just scratching the surface as far as that conversation goes.
So if we've got a business leader listening anywhere in the world that could find themselves getting a little bit excited about the kind of vision that we're talking about today, what would it look like to them, and how easy will it be for them to get on board? And should they be doing any prep now to make sure they're ready, such as unifying and cleaning their data, for example?
Well, as a data platform provider, yes, please go clean your data. It's a pain. But the truth is, I think you want to start thinking about data differently. It still kind of amazes me. And I understand that, again, various industries have various exposure and understanding of these technologies, but the amount of data that people waste, and they don't really think about, it may not be something today. So we're always dealing with the struggle of time, right? And time leads to reduction of scope, and we need to get this job done, and we need to get things out. So we tend to think about data in the context of, what is the application? What is the scope of the application? Let's collect the data we need. Let's operationalize the data we need, and let's get going. And I try to remind clients that, look, it's not, data is temporal. It is a constant flow. It tells a story. It tells a history. And so to the extent that you may not think about this data being important right now, because you don't have the time, you don't have the resources to do anything about it. But when you do, and I promise you, you will, you don't want to look back and go, if only we started capturing that thing 5 years ago. Storage is abundant. It's practically free. We've got all the compute we can need. And so I think the most important thing an organization can do is to really think about how they can leverage data, not today, but over the next decade, and ensure they're not limiting themselves because they're short-sighted about what they can do right now. Things will get easier. Low code, automation, machine learning, you're going to be able to deliver 10 times as much in the future as you can right now. So don't let the present limit what's going to be possible in the future because we're just concerned that we don't have the time or the resources to make use of it right now.
And the idea of building a business on search, of course, is nothing new. And Lucidworks does work in an incredibly crowded field, which must be another challenge. What will make you guys unique and stand out from the crowd, do you think?
You know, we look very carefully at the intersection of people and technology. I think you see a lot of vendors, SaaS vendors in particular, that provide very simple widgets and very simple tools that may attract a certain type of user, but there's no depth. On the other hand, we've got more infrastructure technology than we know what to do with. And frankly, all of that's going to get consolidated into some cloud API sitting between Amazon, Microsoft, and Google at some point. Lucidworks has always looked for the intersection. We've always tried to leverage that intersection. And I think that's very unique in what we do. You know, we were in the market for quite a while before anyone even knew who we were because we were busy building and busy investing in this technology. And we've emerged as an instant leader because we have such a head start. And that doesn't mean we're just going to rest on our laurels and just kick back and think there's nothing else left to do here. In fact, that's why we raised the capital, because we want to go lead the charge on this next phase and continue to stay in the lead. So, you know, we welcome a lot of ideas in the market. We welcome a lot of competition in the market. But we have a very unique view that we continue to stay committed to. And I think that's why we maintain the space between us and our competitors the way that we do.
And another topic I'd love to explore with you is the fact that despite increasingly using our voice to manage our home lighting, our home heating and home entertainment, only 2% of those voice actions at the moment actually involve us buying anything. So there's certainly a lot of work to be done there. But how far do you think we are from migrating to voice search and actually typing into a search engine? How long is it until that suddenly feels incredibly old-fashioned, do you think?
You know, I love this question because I think that there's this hype around voice that is sort of disconnected from the reality. You know, you talked about buying something. Well, look, if you're out of paper towels, if you're out of dish soap, and you happen to be the kind of person who just buys the same old brand, the same quantity every single time, then sure, you know, Siri, Alexa, John, you know, go ahead and order me a refill, if you will. But to be honest, I believe that smart devices are going to get ahead of that and just know ahead of time that, hey, there's a propensity to buy, there's a preference to buy. So I don't believe that, you know, so that piece of maybe, you know, commerce and voice intersecting makes sense. When you think about voice and you think about search, what's interesting is that we don't browse the same way we talk. Right. And when you're shopping, there's a certain experience in the browse experience. And so when you look at people's searching behavior, typically on an e-commerce website, you know, there's a lot of keywords. There might be some phrases. If I'm asking a question, it's because I'm looking for an accessory. Show me the earbuds that go with the iPhone, yada, yada, yada. But typically when we're using voice as a way to retrieve information, we're asking a question. And questions typically, hopefully, have answers. So if I want to know, you know, the score for the Golden State Warriors or the Manchester United game, then yeah, that's a voice query that I can execute. If I'm curious about the NBA draft and I want to go read the profiles of the various players coming out of college that are going to be eligible for the NBA draft, well, I'm going to want to do that through a search, and then I'm going to want to read through some content. I'm going to want to experience that content. So it's not that I don't think voice is something that we all need to be thinking about and having a plan for, but I think we need to think about the scope of voice, because a lot of the ways we request information is through keyword and phrases, and then we want to browse. If we're question and answering, then sure, that's where voice is going to play a role. So how do I get to the hospital? for that toe fungus? How do I, what time is my reservation? Or even more important, action oriented, right? I remember Bill Gates said one time, he said the future of search is going to be verbs. And I think what he meant by that wasn't search in the way we think about it. It's our relationship with the way we execute information. Make me an appointment for lunch at 2 p.m. Like those are the types of things in which voice plays a very significant role. But it's not going to be the end all for everything because frankly, the way we consume, the way we browse, the way we experience content and information, it just doesn't correlate well with the way that we speak at times. It's a different motion mentally.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And even if you look at something as simple as ordering a slice of pizza, if you've got 10 people in the room, they would all order that slice of pizza in a different way, wouldn't they?
Exactly. It's funny because, in fact, because you brought that up, it's so great. Why I think online food ordering is so powerful, because we get to control the experience of the order. We're not talking to somebody and then having to explain ourselves or make sure they understood or have all these angst over whether or not the communication was done properly. We just control the experience. And so, yeah, I'd be very hard pressed to want to order a pizza, for instance, by just saying something, because I don't know what the options are. I don't know if all of my, nuances were taken into consideration. I don't know what I want to put in that little comment box. So, it's a very interesting thing with food, because I say that's where we've moved away from voice, where we were using voice for decades, picking up the phone and calling into the restaurant. And again, we want the experience of really controlling that order. And so we're using text-based web pages to do that.
And we've reached October already. I don't know how that's come around so quick. So everyone's starting to look towards 2020 and tech trends, and all those articles are just a few weeks away, I'm sure. But what will your primary focus be in 2020? And is there anything that excites you about the road ahead?
Everything excites me. I'm a technologist. You'd be surprised. But from a Lucidworks perspective, what we're really excited about is, again, we've been developing this platform for quite a number of years, and now we're moving into more solutions. We're introducing our first chatbot into the market. That's something we're very excited about. And again, this is really to help enterprises answer questions from content. So kind of going back to voice, you can imagine an enterprise, and especially enterprises that have been around for decades, they're sitting on so much information, more information than a human being can possibly consume. So with NLP and other AI technologies, we can process that information and we can help organizations answer questions in their domain, have that Google-like experience, if you will. And so that's something that we're really excited about. We're continuing to see, efforts around omni-channel. And so where our customers are competing with some of these giants, they have the advantages of having stores inside of every town, and they want to intersect those experiences. So as I go from a website and I walk into a store, they know what I was doing, they know what I was browsing, they can complete that experience in person or online. And so these are two things that we're introducing next year that we're incredibly excited about. But, things are moving so quickly. Like you said, you'd hate to fall asleep for even 6 months and wake up and try to keep up with what's going on. I think 5G is gonna be really interesting. I don't expect that to happen next year, but I think we're going to start to see more and more efforts and more investment and government involvement. I think it's going to open up some conversations that are going to be interesting, but it's going to open up some opportunities. The idea of having just a few cloud vendors, I believe, is going to go away, because we're going to have so much connectivity that we could have mom and pop public clouds that can provide the same level of access to information and storage, different views on privacy than maybe an Amazon and a Google. So there's a lot to be looking forward to, a little bit to be nervous about, but really just a ton of opportunity.
Fantastic. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you on today. But before I do let you go, could I just ask that you remind anyone listening where they can find you guys online, find out more about your vision and the kind of thing that you're doing? And equally, if there's a business leader that just wants to contact your team and carry that conversation on, what's the best way of doing that?
Absolutely. You can find us at lucidworks.com, L-U-C-I-D, works, W-O-R-K-S.com. On Twitter, same thing. And we'd love to talk. There's no place in any one of the enterprises, retailers, applications where we can't make data more personal. And we'd love to have a conversation. Even if you think it's a crazy, far out there idea, we'd love to engage.
And what I love about you here and your conversation and listening to you today is your passion, your excitement and your enthusiasm for technology and everything that you do really does come across. So I wish you the best of luck for the future. Hopefully I can meet up with you in a tech event in the near future as well. But more than anything, just a big thank you for coming on today.
Thank you so much, Neil. This has been a ton of fun.
With technology built on solar, the global search standard used by 90% of Fortune 500 companies, the Lucidworks team includes leading search and discovery contributors and committers, as well as many of the world's foremost search and machine learning innovators. And Lucidworks has recently risen to the Leaders Quadrant over in Gartner's 2018 Magic Quadrant for Insight Engines. Reddit, Red Hat, Moody's, Commvault and Verizon are just a few of the companies that rely on Lucidworks every day to power their consumer-facing and enterprise search apps. Big takeaway for me, this is one company to watch on your hot tech companies list. Especially when we're looking at the downfall of Thomas Cook at the moment, because I think for me that highlights how the experience economy is dominating everything. Because on one hand we've got Thomas Cook with the traditional package holidays that are disappearing, and on the other we've got Airbnb experiences, Culture Trip, that are creating experiences and personalised experiences for consumers. And they're thriving in a digital age. But enough of me rambling. What did you take away from today's episode? Please email me, techblogwriter@outlook.com, tweet me at Neil C. Hughes, or pop by my website, techblogwriter.co.uk. But that's it for me. It's quitting time. It's time for me to find my own personalised experience, whether that be on Spotify, Netflix or Amazon. It seems that every major company knows exactly what I want to buy, what I want to listen to, and what movies I'd like to watch. Funny how we take those expectations everywhere we go now. It makes it a very interesting time for businesses. But that's it for me, so a big thank you for listening, and until next time, don't be a stranger.
Thank you for listening to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast with Neil C. Hughes. Remember, technology works best when it brings people together.